Welcome to Keto Meals and Recipes.com. After so many of my viewers told me how much they loved my sugar-free sweetened condensed milk, I was really happy to hear that many of you were using it to make other recipes, and also many of you requested that I make a Tres Leches cake, which I did and posted in November 2019. And that video and recipe have been very successful as well. So I thought I would now post a chocolate version. In this video, I will detail a step-by-step tutorial on how to make this keto, sugar-free, and gluten-free chocolate Tres Leches cake. If you're a chocolate lover, this is the cake for you, because each of the three components or layers of this cake uses a lot of tasty pure cocoa. I ask that you please watch the entire video since the recipe has a few steps, which if you're just reading the recipe may seem complicated, but I assure you if you follow along and watch my video and take it step by step, it's actually a very easy cake to make. And to further simplify this recipe, both in the written recipe and in this video tutorial, I have compartmentalized the steps so that you can follow along more easily. As I mention from time to time in my videos, making a cake is just chemistry. The important thing is to get the measurements right and also to follow the directions step by step as indicated. And before getting started, the last thing I'd like to mention is if you like this cake and want more similar wonderful treats, please check out the end cards, which I picked specifically to go along with this cake. Now, for the chocolate Tres Leches cake, the macronutrient ratio is 4.9 to 1, with 10.4 grams of total carbs, 4.5 grams of soluble fiber, resulting in 5.9 grams of net carbs per generous cake serving. The cake batter is very simple and quick to make. Therefore, before beginning the recipe, preheat your oven to 175 degrees Celsius or 350 degrees Fahrenheit. And also line a 20 by 20 centimeter or 8 by 8 inch pan with parchment paper and set the pan aside for a moment. The first part of this cake is to make the sponge cake. And with that, the first thing you do is you separate the room temperature eggs, putting the whites into one bowl and the yolks into another bowl. Let's start with the bowl with the yolks. Whip the yolks, and when they start getting frothy, add the powdered sweetener and whisk with an electric mixer until the yolks are pale yellow and have increased in volume. And do remember to scrape the bowl to incorporate all the sweetener that has clung to the side of the bowl. Add the vanilla and the half and half cream and water mixture or almond milk and whisk to combine. Place a fine mesh sieve over the bowl and add the dry ingredients: the almond flour, coconut flour, very finely ground salt, baking powder, glucomannan, and cocoa powder. Here I'm using a Dutch processed cocoa because I prefer the flavor, but you can use a regular cocoa powder too. And then just stir or whisk to help the dry ingredients go through the sieve. This aerating is important because you do not want any clumps of almond flour or even concentrated pockets of any one of the ingredients that will stand out. Having sifted everything, the next thing is to fold all the dry ingredients with the egg yolk mixture. And when you see a nice even color, you're done. My next step is to whip up the egg whites. Whip at high speed until frothy, meaning that there are big bubbles and all the runny albumin or the liquidy part of the egg has been whipped. This is the best time to add your lemon juice and then continue whipping to the stiff stage. Here's a way you can tell that it's at the right stiffness. If you take a spoon and scoop some of the whipped egg whites and turn your spoon upside down, and the whites do not slide off or fall like this, this is exactly perfect. Your egg whites have been whipped to the right consistency. Transfer about 1/3 of the whipped egg whites into the yolk batter and vigorously whisk into the yolk batter. This step is called loosening your batter, which will make it much easier to add the rest of the egg whites without deflating the egg whites too much and keeping the entire cake batter very light. After loosening my batter, it's time to add the rest of the whipped egg whites and then gently fold into the yolk batter until all the whites have been incorporated. As you're doing this, please do not over whip because you don't want to deflate the batter too much. Then pour the batter into your prepared parchment-lined pan. Drop the pan gently onto your surface. This will help to get rid of the larger air bubbles. And also, use a thin butter knife or skewer and run it through the batter first one way and then another. This will help to remove any remaining air bubbles. Place the pan into the middle position of your preheated oven and bake for 25 to 30 minutes. But before removing it from the oven, test the cake to make sure that it's done in the middle. And you do this by sticking a toothpick through the center. And if it comes out clean, your cake is done. If it's a little bit moist, give it another 5 minutes and test again. And when you're happy, remove the pan from the oven and let the cake cool in the pan for about 20 minutes. To take the cake out of the pan, flip onto a parchment-lined cooling rack and let the cake cool completely to room temperature. You don't have to do this, but before proceeding, I like to trim the sides of the cake to make clean, even edges, which makes for a better presentation. And these extra scraps you've just trimmed off are your treats, which most people call baker's bonus. And then while your cake is cooling, you do the next step, which is to make the 3-milk bath, or the tres leches. In a large measuring cup or small bowl, pour in your sugar-free sweetened condensed milk, the heavy cream, and either the half and half milk mixture or almond milk, and of course the cocoa powder. In order that your cocoa powder doesn't clump, add it 1 tablespoon at a time and stir in between each addition. And when everything's been added, then whisk vigorously to combine into a very silky, lump-free liquid. And when you're happy with your tres leches, set it aside for a moment. Now for the next step. My cake has cooled completely, so I'm going to place the cake and the fresh parchment into a large leak-proof pan. Now for the fun part. Using a fork or a skewer, generously poke the surface of the cake with lots and lots of holes. Having lots of holes will allow more of the tres leches to be absorbed into the cake. And now pour the tres leches mixture over the cake. First pour just enough into the center of the cake and spread it about a bit. And then wait a bit so some of the milk can be absorbed. About 1 or 2 minutes is enough. And pour the rest of the tres leches onto the center of your cake. You will notice that some of the tres leches milk will run down the sides. That's okay. You actually want that, but not too much. Use an offset spatula to even out the milk mixture over the entire surface. It may also help to carefully tilt the pan from side to side to help even out the tres leches mixture. You have completed 2 of the 3 steps, and now it's time to refrigerate the cake for at least 1 hour or even overnight. While your cake is in the fridge, you'll have time to make the last layer, the cream frosting. Just before removing the cake from the fridge, it's time to make the whipped cream by pouring the heavy cream into a bowl and to add the powdered confectioner's sweetener, and then just whip to combine. When you notice that the cream is getting frothy, add the vanilla and the cocoa powder, which I also do by adding 1 tablespoon at a time, and whip until a light peak stage. Because things like to cling to the side of your bowl, don't forget to stop and scrape. Here's something that I do, which is not actually necessarily part of the original recipe, but I think it's really a good idea, and I highly recommend it. That is, add your room temperature mascarpone cheese. This cheese is so light tasting it doesn't affect the final taste, but it does help make the cream mixture denser and more stable. And after adding your mascarpone, whip to combine, but don't over whip. You want your final cream to be at a medium stiffness stage. Now we're ready for the final part, to assemble the cake. Get your cake out of the fridge and take it out of the pan and place it onto your serving tray. And as you're removing it from the pan and placing it onto your serving tray, gently peel away the bottom parchment paper. Please be very careful when you're doing this and use a support spatula. To make things as neat as possible, what I like to do is to tuck strips of my parchment under the edges. This will keep your tray cleaner. Ladle the cream frosting onto the center of the top of the cake and smooth out the surface with an offset spatula. You want a really nice, even surface. Because I've already trimmed my cake, I'm going to use my spatula to scrape the sides of the cake and to clean up the edges. And because I've done most of the messy parts of the assembly, it's time to pull out the pieces of parchment I had under the cake. Now get your unsweetened dark chocolate shavings. The best way I have found to distribute the chocolate as evenly as possible is by using a tablespoon and tap it as you move it over the surface of the cake. Go over it once or twice until you've used up all of your chocolate. To help ensure that the chocolate sticks to my cream layer, I gently run the spatula over the surface. I guess I should have left the parchment in place until after this step. So I'll have to clean the serving tray again. I think this looks absolutely amazing, don't you? But it's time to place the cake back in the refrigerator for about 1 or 2 hours, long enough for the cream frosting layer to set properly. When you're ready to serve, cut the cake into 3 even sections lengthwise and 3 even sections widthwise to make 9 squares. If you want smaller pieces, cut into 4 rows in one direction and 3 in the other. Now it's finally time to plate my cake and get a few thumbnail photos, of course. I'm not sure which plate will be best, so I'm going to try a few of them. This one, or maybe this clear one. And let's check out what it would look like with a white plate underneath. It's really hard to decide on the thumbnail photo, because I really do want to convey how tasty this cake is. Now for my reward. I finally get a taste of this chocolatey, moist, melt-in-your-mouth cake. As I mentioned at the beginning, I really love the classic vanilla Tres Leches cake. I do have to admit that I am a bit of a chocoholic, so this chocolate version is actually amazing and my favorite. Which do you prefer, vanilla or chocolate? I hope that you will make this cake very soon, and most of all, enjoy it. The link for the printable chocolate Tres Leches cake and any other video mentioned, the links are all posted in the description below. If you're new to my channel or have not done so previously, I would be truly honored if you would subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, share the link with someone you know, and leave me a comment. Most of all, please come back when I post my next video. Until next time, I hope you enjoy this recipe and have a wonderful day. Cheers!